On the 25th of June 1991, Croatia declared their independence from Yugoslavia, kickstarting the Croatian War of Independence. 1 year, 1 week and 2 days later, Croatia played their first friendly as a FIFA member against Australia, losing 1-0. In the 30 years since, Croatia have transformed themselves from minnows into international heavyweights that regularly compete in the latter rounds of major tournaments. How has a country with a population of less than 4 million rose to such a stature? How has Croatia managed to outperform the other former Yugoslav nations by such a distance? And lastly, is it sustainable? Are they just riding the crest of the wave, or is there longevity in this for them? This video seeks to answer all of these questions and more as we delve back through the archives to take a look at the story of Croatia, international football's biggest overachievers. To begin, it's necessary to acknowledge the backdrop in which Croatia found independence in 1991. In a nutshell, following the conclusion of the First World War, the Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes was formed from territories of the former Austro-Hungarian Empire. In 1929, the nation renamed itself to the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, aka the land of the South Slavs. In the Second World War, the nation was invaded by the Axis. During the fighting, the partisan resistance proclaimed a democratic federal Yugoslavia as opposed to the monarchy that had been leading the country before. Stick with me, I'll be talking about Luka Modric before you know it. Right. Anyway, so World War II ends with the Allies defeating the Axis. Yugoslavia is back once more, only this time it has abolished the monarchy and now has a communist government under leader Josip Broz Tito. In 1963, the nation changed its name once more to the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, and more poignantly, Tito is named President for life. So at the top you have President Tito and then the President of all the republics underneath, one for Bosnia and Herzegovina, one for Croatia, one for Macedonia, one for Montenegro, one for Serbia and one for Slovenia. Tito was a very powerful president and Yugoslavia was mostly peaceful during his reign. Again, we're getting closer to talking about football, just wait, this is all very important. However, in 1980, Tito died with no plan in place as to who would replace him as president of Yugoslavia. Instead, a collective presidency is enacted with the leader of the 6 republics. So firstly, the leader of Bosnia was president of the presidency for 1 year, then the leader of Slovenia, then Serbia, etc. Alas, this is where problems would arise. The leaders of each republic only had vested interest to look out for their own self-interest. For example, why would the leader of the Republic of Slovenia want to improve the lives of the people in the Republic of Montenegro? As such, independent movements gained traction within many of the republics, and none more so than Croatia. Croatia was so keen on independence for a few reasons. Primarily, Croatia thought it was putting more in than it was getting back by being a member of Yugoslavia. Economically, Croatia was the wealthiest republic in Yugoslavia, yet felt that Serbia unjustly dominated the Yugoslavia government, military and finance. I'm not here to argue the reasoning for or against, I'm merely here to state the facts. And thus Croatia declared independence, kickstarting their war of independence that lasted 5 years. Whew. Before we move on, this is a very limited account of the history of Yugoslavia from inception to dissolution. There are many better other accounts out there that I'd implore you to go and watch. I also recognise that this discussion topic is still very hotly contested, but my comment section is not the place to air your grievances. I have no dog in this fight whatsoever. I have no agenda to any of the former Yugoslav nations whatsoever. I just simply want to tell the story of how this went to this. And it's a hell of a story, so strap in. Now, if you got through all of that, firstly, well done. But you may also be thinking, what on earth does that have to do with the Croatian national team? Well, I hear you, but I can't answer that question right away. Just know that context is very important in this case, and by the end of the video, you will have a greater understanding as a result. And if you hated that segment, then just know I used to be a history teacher, so think of how my former students used to feel. Anyway, back to the story at hand. We are now in 1992. FIFA have just approved Croatia as a member of their federation and can now take part in international friendlies. Any hope of them taking part in the 1994 World Cup were quickly dashed though, as complications arose due to the Croatian War of Independence, which saw UEFA wait until 1993 to grant them admission into the federation. Instead, they would have to wait until qualification for Euro 1996 to make their mark. It was here where the story really begins. Croatia, who slotted straight into 125th in the FIFA World Rankings, kick-started their national team journey. They were led by the eccentric Miroslav Blažević, who had already had an extensive European managerial career before taking this job on. Additionally, he was also close personal friends with Franjo Tuđman, the first president of independent Croatia. In their qualifying group for the 1996 European Championships, Croatia drew Italy, Ukraine, Lithuania, Estonia, and fellow former Yugoslav nation, Slovenia. And despite it being their first time competing as an independent nation, they won the group ahead of Italy. They were potent in front of goal, with their star striker Davor Šuker scoring 12 goals in qualifying, but more on that man later. Yes, Euro 1996, the tournament that returned to the motherland, England, would be Croatia's first foray into a major competition. At this juncture, it's worth reminding ourselves that Croatia was only 5 years old when this tournament began. They drew holders of the competition Denmark, Portugal and Turkey in their group, and it was the latter who were first up for Blažević's men. A staunch end-to-end battle took place at the City Ground in Nottingham, but there was very little to separate the two teams. With the game poised at 0-0 with just 5 minutes remaining, Goran Vlahović finished off a blistering counter-attack by rounding the Turkey keeper and firing into the empty net. Vlahović had only managed to play one game during qualification due to a blood clot on the brain, and now he was a national hero. Tougher tests would surely follow though, with the holders of the competition, Denmark, up next. As it turned out though, this wasn't to be the case at all. Croatia ran out 3-0 winners in this one, with Davor Šuker scoring one of the most iconic goals in Euros history. In the final game of the group stage, Croatia took on Portugal with qualification already assured. It was now just to see who would win the group. Unfortunately though, this proved to be a task too strong, as Portugal ran out 3-0 winners. This saw them finish second in the group and lined up a date with Germany in their first ever knockout round match. Ahead of their match against Die Mannschaft, it was rumoured that there was a flu bug going around the Croatian camp, which may explain why Barcelona midfielder Robert Prosinecki and Juventus midfielder Alan Boksic were only able to make the bench. In the match, Jurgen Klinsmann opened the scoring from the penalty spot before Davor Šuker levelled up by capitalising on a German defensive error, the first goal they had conceded at Euro 96. However, 5 minutes later, Igor Stimac got his tackle all wrong and saw himself dismissed with 30 minutes left to play. Under the cosh now, Croatia couldn't survive the onslaught, with Matthias Sammer's strike proving to be the difference as Germany prevailed 2-1. It would be a shame for Croatia, but it proved they could compete on the international stage. Lessons would have to be learned, but the Blazers had found their identity. To qualify for Euro 1996 was a marvellous achievement for Croatia, but to also qualify for the 1998 World Cup, that would be stunning. They were drawn in a group consisting of Denmark, Greece and former Yugoslav nations Bosnia and Herzegovina and Slovenia. With 2 games left of qualifying, there were only 3 points between Denmark on top, Greece in third, with Croatia sandwiched in between. The penultimate match in qualification saw Croatia travel to Copenhagen for a highly consequential match in front of 40,000 spectators. The Laudrup brothers would both score as Denmark won the match 3-1. Croatia would recover to their own 3-1 win against Slovenia, but that was only enough for second place in the group and a place in the playoffs. In the open draw at FIFA HQ in Zurich, Croatia were drawn against Ukraine in the playoffs, with the winner qualifying for the 1998 World Cup. At home, Croatia did the business, a 2-0 home win with goals courtesy of Slavan Bilic and Euro 1996 goalscorer Goran Vlahović. In the second leg, they were only good enough for a 1-1, but that was enough. Croatia had qualified for the 1998 World Cup. It would be their first World Cup as an independent nation, and they would be qualifying alongside the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, which at this point was just the republics of Serbia and Montenegro. Going into the tournament, Croatia was still somewhat of an unknown quantity. They had done well as newbies in 1996, but still lost the expected games against Portugal and Germany respectively. Fiery coach Miroslav Blažević explained how he took advantage of the intense patriotism within the squad, stating, "We were very much an unknown country, so it was our chance to put the team and the whole country in the spotlight. it was easy to motivate the players. This was evidenced in their first ever match against Jamaica, with Japan and Argentina to come later. Croatia ran out 3-1 winners with goals from Mario Stanic, Robert Przonecki and that man Davor Šuker once more. Japan followed, who were also making their debut at the FIFA World Cup, and Croatia overcame them too with a late winner from Šuker again. This win saw the nation qualify for the knockout stages once again, but would have to beat Argentina to win the group. Despite competing well, Argentina won the match by 1-0, which set up a tie against Romania in the last 16. Elsewhere, Yugoslavia had also come through their group in second place behind Euro 1996 winners Germany. The knockout stages again for Croatia, this time facing a nation that thought they were all the real Slim Shady. Well, it turned out that they were the imitators as Croatia won by 1-0 courtesy of a Davor Šuker penalty. The last 8 beckoned for Croatia, but that wasn't the case for the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia as they were sent home by the Netherlands, who scored a 92nd minute winner for Edgar Davids. For Croatia, it was Germany next, the nation who had defeated them in Euro 96 and then went on to win the tournament. Could they overcome them this time around? It was at this juncture the intense patriotism referenced by Blažević really came into effect. A physical battle engulfed the entire first half of the match with Christian Wörns sent off for Germany. This encouraged the underdogs greatly as Robert Jani got Croatia ahead just minutes later. Vlahovic then doubled the advantage before Šuker also got himself in on the action. Blaževic's men had banished the Demons from 1996 and had qualified for the semi-finals of the 1998 World Cup. At this point, everyone was familiar with Croatia and they would be facing the host France to see who could reach the final. A cagey first half saw neither side find the score sheet, but 1 minute into the second half, a ripple was felt in the Stade de France. Šuker had latched onto a through ball and scored his 5th goal of the tournament. Croatia were just 45 minutes away from a World Cup final, just 7 years after gaining independence. Sadly for them, that jubilation came crashing down just seconds later as Lilian Thuram equalised the match. In fact, Thuram only scored 2 international goals in 144 matches for France, and the second came just 20 minutes later as France turned the game on its head and defeated Croatia 2-1 to reach the World Cup final. It wasn't to be for Šuker and co this time around, but they did recover well to win the 3rd place playoff match against the team that knocked Yugoslavia out, a 2-1 win over the Netherlands. Despite the sad end, the achievement was utterly enormous. The Croatian media lauded the team as the golden generation for this completely unprecedented result, which no one had predicted before the tournament. Slavan Bilic revealed later that the president of Croatia, Franjo Tuđman, would talk privately to the players during the tournament, calling them ambassadors of the nation. Memories of the Civil War were still very much at the forefront of players' minds, with defender Igor Stimac explaining, "We are much stronger on the field after what we've been through. There is nothing to be afraid of now on the green pitch." And before we move on from 1998, we have to talk about that man, Davor Šuker. He lit up the competition with 6 goals in 7 matches. The man is a legend of international football and Croatia's all-time top goal scorer. It would be completely remiss not to pay homage to this great team. One that provided the blueprint of how a nation with a limited pool of players can use harmony and togetherness to cultivate a team of people capable of going toe-to-toe with the very elite. It is undeniable that this group inspired future generations to come. At the conclusion of the 1998 World Cup, Croatia had risen to 3rd in the FIFA World Rankings and their reputation had increased tenfold. As such, expectation would be higher going into Euro 2000 qualification. The Blazers were drawn into Group 8 for qualification alongside the Republic of Ireland, Macedonia, Malta and crucially the Federal Republic of Yugoslavia. The two nations had yet to meet on the football field since Croatia declared independence 7 years earlier. Going into their first meeting, both sides had done reasonably well in qualifying. Croatia's record was 2 wins, 1 draw and 1 loss, while Yugoslavia's was a perfect one, 3 wins from 3. The first of 2 matches between the sides was held in Belgrade in 1999. Tensions were understandably high and rose even higher when a power outage saw the stadium plunged into darkness just moments before kickoff. It had been speculated that this was to further intimidate the Croatian players. In terms of the match itself though, it was played at lightning pace. The woodwork was hit 3 times throughout the match, with no breakthrough being able to be found, leading the match to finish 0-0. In the return fixture, the stakes were even higher. It was the final match of qualification and there were many possibilities. Yugoslavia led the group on 16 points, with the Republic of Ireland in the playoff spot on 15 points, whilst Croatia sat in third on 14. They needed to win against their rivals to qualify for Euro 2000. And controversy came just 10 minutes into the match. Legendary striker Davor Šuker met a cross with a bullet header that was pushed out by Yugoslav goalkeeper Ivica Krauj. However, the ball had actually crossed the line and the officials hadn't seen it. 11 minutes later though, Croatia did get their noses in front though, with Alen Boksic providing the finish. The crowd were dancing in the stands. Boksic had taken his shirt off to reveal a shirt with the Euro 2000 logo on it. Pandemonium. Another 10 minutes later though, it had all gone wrong for Croatia. Yugoslavia had flipped the game on its head and were now leading by 2-1. The crowd were in a stunned silence. They would themselves have to flip the game once again to find a way to qualify. However, Yugoslavia gave Croatia the biggest lifeline they could. In the 41st minute, Mirkovic of Yugoslavia and Jani of Croatia came together, with the referee awarding a free kick to the visitors. Jani protested to the ref, then called Mirkovic a cheat, and the Yugoslav retaliated by grabbing Jani's genitalia. He was sent off immediately and gave Croatia extra motivation to come back. Early in the second half, Mario Stanic had levelled the game once again, making it 2-2. All they needed to do now was find a winner and they would qualify for Euro 2000. But the goal never came. They huffed and they puffed, but Yugoslavia held strong. They qualified and humiliated their rivals as Croatia failed to qualify for a major tournament for the first time since independence. With Croatians forced to watch from home, Yugoslavia took centre stage at Euro 2000. They were drawn into Group C alongside Spain, Norway and fellow independence declarer Slovenia, and it was the latter of whom Yugoslavia would face in their first match of the tournament. Slovenia were the major underdogs in the clash, yet remarkably, an hour into the game, Slovenia found themselves 3-0 up on a nation they were a part of just a decade earlier. Yugoslavia's task got even harder minutes later as Sinacija Milojevic got himself sent off for a silly push in front of the Portuguese referee. Yet seemingly this was the motivation the favourites needed to get back into the match, as 15 minutes later they were level at 3-3 with a brace from Savo Milicevic, a fantastic comeback in their opening match. Norway were next, who had surprisingly beaten Spain in their first match of the tournament. Milicevic scored his third of the competition in this one to take home a 1-0 win for Yugoslavia, despite a late red card again, this time for Mateja Kezman. In the final group game against Spain, another match of the tournament contender took place. As the game entered the 90th minute, Yugoslavia were winning by 3-2 and set to win the group, despite yet another red card to Jokanovic this time. However, following a 93rd minute penalty and a 95th minute winner from Alfonso, Spain turned the game on its head in unbelievable fashion. This not only prevented Spain from going out of the competition, but also saw them win the group. In the knockouts, Yugoslavia drew the Netherlands once again and got truly rocked by the hosts. An onslaught was afoot as a crowd of 44,000 saw the hosts demolish Yugoslavia by 6-1. Ironically, this was the only match of the tournament that Yugoslavia managed to keep 11 men for 90 minutes. But alas, Yugoslavia were out, and more poignantly still, this was the final time that Yugoslavia qualified as a nation for any international tournament again. They'd got one over on Croatia by qualifying ahead of them, but what they didn't know was it would be the final hurrah between newly independent nation and former state. Instead, Yugoslavia would now be named Serbia and Montenegro, with the superstate a relic of the past. Moving into qualification for the 2002 World Cup, change had taken place. The end of the Miroslav Blažević came after 2 draws in the opening 2 matches of qualification as he resigned. He would resign with his reputation intact, having been very successful in 1996 and extremely successful in 1998. But now that door was shut, and instead came successor Mirko Josic, an internal hire from the under-21s, but certainly a man with a lot of experience. He had won 3 Chilean Premier Division titles in the early 90s and had managed in 7 countries. With 6 matches left to qualifying, Josic led his side to 5 wins and a draw, which saw them top the group ahead of Belgium. A job well done as Croatia returned to a major tournament for the first time in 4 years. Heading over to Japan and South Korea, Croatia were keen to make the same impact they had made at the 1998 World Cup. Though this would be a trickier task given the higher calibre of opposition in their group, which included Italy, Confederations Cup winners Mexico and unknown quantity Ecuador. While some new names had entered the fold, plenty were still around from that 1998 squad, including Boksic, Jani, Stanic, Prozanecki, Shuka and Vlahovic. Their first match was against Mexico and they was hoping to get off to the best possible start. However, this would not end up being the case as Croatia lost the match 1-0 courtesy of a Blanco penalty. Italy were next and expectation was low heading into the match, but it was imperative that Croatia didn't lose. An hour in though, Christian Vieri had gotten Italy into the lead. Croatia were heading out of the World Cup until Ivica Olic scored, and then a second came shortly after from Milan Rapejic. Saw the game turn on its head and Croatia won the match by 2-1, perhaps their best ever international result up until this point. Croatia looked set to qualify as long as they would beat Ecuador, who had already been knocked out of the competition having lost their opening 2 matches. However, just when confidence had returned, it was zapped away again by Edison Mendes, who scored the lone goal as Ecuador won 1-0. The spirit that was so prevalent 4 years earlier in France was nowhere to be seen in Yokohama. Following the tournament, Mirko Josic resigned, and whether that was for the betterment or the detriment of the Croatian national team, that remains to be seen. He had led them through an unbeaten qualification and beat Italy at the tournament itself, but it was very disappointing when they lost to Ecuador, which ultimately saw them be sent home in the group stage. Instead, incoming was manager Otto Baric, another experienced manager who was assistant manager under Blažević during Euro 96. His major task heading into qualification for Euro 2004 was phasing out the last of the golden generation and ushering in a new era for Croatian football while still managing to qualify for the tournament itself. It was touch and go throughout qualification, with Croatia only managing to finish second in their group, which led to a playoff match against Slovenia, which fortunately they overcome. There was now an opportunity for the new era to stamp their authority in Portugal at Euro 2004. Going into Euro 2004, Croatia had their finishing hopes resting on a new man. Step back Davor Šuker and step forward Dado Perso. He was an interesting character, having left Croatia at age 19 to pursue a footballing career in France instead. And it wasn't until his 29th birthday when he first got called up for Croatia, having had 2 brilliant seasons at Monaco, with the latter saw them finish as runners-up in the Champions League. He scored 3 goals during qualification and Croatia were desperate to use his stature to help propel them at Euro 2004. Success would have to be hard fought though, as Croatia were drawn in a very tough group alongside England, France and Switzerland in Group B. Could this new look Croatia find their way through a challenging group? First up was the game they would most fancy themselves to win, which was against Switzerland, the lowest ranked team in the group. Despite this though, Perso didn't fire, and neither did the rest of the squad, as it ended up being a bore draw. Next up to face was France, holders of the competition, who had managed to win Euro 2000. Expectations were low and it was only compounded further when Le Bleus took the lead through an Igor Tudor own goal into the second half, and whatever Baric said to his men had clearly gotten through, as within 7 minutes Croatia had not only equalised but had taken the lead through that man Perso, who scored his first goal at a major international tournament. It would only be short-lived though, as golden goal man David Trezeguet found an equaliser, and that's how the game ended. A respectable result for the Croatians, but they would need victory in their final match against England to qualify. 5 minutes into their match against the Three Lions, they believed they could do it, as they took the lead for a goalmouth scramble that Niko Kovic turned home. However, it wasn't their night. A teenage Rooney added his 3rd and 4th goals of the tournament, as well as 1 each for Scholes and Lampard, saw Croatia easily beaten 4-2. For a second straight tournament, Croatia were eliminated at the group stage, and once again, the manager paid the price, as Otto Baric's contract wasn't renewed. Another qualifying campaign, another new man in charge. This time it was Zlatko Kranjčar, the father of the former Tottenham midfielder Niko Kranjčar. Croatia were very strong in the qualifying campaign, avoiding defeat in all 10 matches and qualifying top of the group ahead of Sweden. As such, the team were heading to Germany with much renewed confidence, this time believing they could get through the group. Joining them in the tournament was Serbia and Montenegro. the first time they had made a tournament under their new name. They were also stunning in qualifying, finishing undefeated, conceding just once and landing in top spot ahead of Spain. Equally, they believed they could surprise teams at the 2006 World Cup. For Croatia, they were in Group F alongside Brazil, Japan and Australia. A tricky group, but certainly one they would think they could qualify from. Serbia and Montenegro, on the other hand, certainly drew the shortest straw, picking up Argentina, the Netherlands and the Ivory Coast. Differing journeys for both nations, but who would come out on top? The first game for Croatia will be against the holders Brazil, undeniably their hardest match in the group. Although the Blazers performed well in this clash, Brazil ran out winners by 1-0 with a lovely goal from Kaká. This was a reassuring start though. They had not been embarrassed in their opening game and still had 2 winnable matches to come. Next was Japan, who had lost their opening match against Australia 3-1. Any hope for a first win since the 2002 World Cup were quickly dashed though, as Croatia missed a penalty and a slew of chances and had to settle for a 0-0 draw. A major problem for the team appeared to be creativity. Since Robert Prosinecki had retired, reliable playmakers seemed very hard to come by. It wasn't all over for them yet though, as they had Australia in their final match of the group, and a win would probably see them progress. And they started perfectly as legendary fullback Dario Scherner scored his first goal with a thunderous free kick. However, Australia got themselves back level from the penalty spot going into half time. Croatia needed a winner and thought they'd found it when Niko Kovac scored to make it 2-1. However, Australia then pulled it back to 2-2 with a strike from Harry Kewell. The game was also marred in controversy when English ref Graham Poll gave Croatian Simjanic 2 yellow cards but did not produce a red. However, in the dire minutes of the game, he then produced a 3rd yellow for Simjanic and at that point sent him off. Regardless of the lunacy though, Croatia had been sent home at the group stage for the 3rd consecutive tournament. At this point, Croatia looked to be a bit of a flash in the pan. Sure, Euro 1996 and World Cup 1998 had been major successes for Croatia, but the subsequent 4 tournaments had been pitiful. The narrative was that Croatia had rode a patriotic wave in the 1990s that elevated its performances, as well as teams underestimating their ability, but now they were properly rated. But is that too harsh of an assessment? Serbia and Montenegro were also present at the 2006 World Cup, and they lost all 3 of their group matches, including a 6-0 to Argentina. Sure, Croatia were a little inconsistent, but they had the best record of all the former Yugoslav nations. Croatia had made it to 5 tournaments from 6, compared to Yugoslavia's 3 and Slovenia's 2, and no one was able to better their performance of 3rd at the 1998 World Cup. 15 years after independence, football in Croatia was thriving. Perhaps it was because of the legacy of Yugoslavian sports facilities, or maybe it was because of Croatia's unique patriotism, or maybe just another reason altogether. This is up to you to decide in the comments, albeit respectably. Now this video is actually going to be the first of a 2-parter into Croatia's national team story. In the second part we will explore Croatia's runs in the 2018 and 2022 World Cup, the brilliance of Modric, Rakitic, Mandzukic etc, and everything else in between. If the second video is out, you can find it in the card above me or in the link in the description. And if it's not, well, I guess you'll have to subscribe with notifications on and wait for that video to come out. But until then, thank you very much for watching, and I will see you all very soon.